Look, I like to be creative. You guys know it, and I've opened with this kind of monologue before of creativity in my names, creativity of trying to trace it to what's going on. But there's some just classics I can't get away from, and one of those is free agent frenzy, um, because everyone truly loses their mind, and I find myself in that same almost mansplaining mode that I feel like I am every time something like the free agency season kicks off, where everyone knows what's happening, but yet here I am trying to make an analogy with it of, oh, it's like, the bar 15 minutes before closing time, get that last drink in and you're desperate for your last drink or desperate for someone to take home. Like that's what everyone's like on the first day of free agency. Yeah, thanks. Everybody who follows the NFL knows that, Mike. You're not giving us any new information here. And in an age of explaining very simple things to people in many different ways that we're in, I'm trying to do a better job of not getting myself caught in that trap. So when I start to do those things, I hope you guys give me the heads up and call me on it so that I don't become boring. And to make sure that I don't become boring, I've got RJ here with me as we talk some free agents. RJ, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Always fun to do these.
So, look, it's free agency in the NFL. It's free agency in our league. Um, we're going to spend probably more time talking NFL free agency than our free agency because A, ours just kicked off, and B, the headline of our free agency right now appears to be Demario Davis at almost 19 million, Cavante Turpin at 20 million, and Kendrick Bourne at 15.15 million. So, um, yeah, it's going to be one of those where let's get super excited about that. But we'll spend some time on it later on because, again, this is a podcast about our fantasy league. But we'll kind of kick it off talking about the NFL free agency. So I haven't found a listing of, say, ranking the top free agents and who's here and who's gone. If you've got one, throw it in the chat and we'll take a look at that. But for now, we're looking at the NFL.com. I guess just kind of going team by team here. RJ, I don't know if you have it up as well. If not, I'll try and share my screen.
Nope, I do.
First team up I see is the Buffalo Bills. Big thing is kind of the extensions they did. Extended Josh Allen, extended Greg Rousseau, extended Terrell Bernard, extended Khalil Shakir, but then picked up Josh Palmer, which is an interesting signing for me. Like I think that does good things, and I think they also realized with the Stephon Diggs experiment that they don't want to spend money on big name receivers. Just give us the guys that complement each other in the right way. And I feel like Palmer in that offense is the right fit. But again, from a fantasy perspective, it's not like, holy shit, he's going to be a 200-point player. Like, I'm expecting kind of in that 120, 140 points that we saw, I think, last year. But, just for a different team.
Yeah, I like it as a signing. Currently on their roster, they only have five wide receivers. Keon Coleman, Mari Cooper, Palmer, who was recently signed, Khalil Shakir, and Curtis Samuel. And like Palmer seems like he fits well with that group. It definitely feels like they're just going to go with whoever has the hot hand at the moment. I don't see any particular guy that's like better than the rest. So I think he's a great addition to that group. He'll be, you know, the top target for a couple of games throughout the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, it's a better way of doing things in Buffalo, it seems, for what they want with Josh Allen. Palmer will have the number one games. Shakir will have the number one games. Kincaid or I think Knox is still on the team will have the number one games. It'll just kind of rotate. But that seems to be a better form for their offense to take than having the star receiver. So that's a big one for the Bills. Miami Dolphins, obviously, it's the Zach Wilson signing. The one I really like, so there's a couple I really like here. So sorry, I'm not going to say the one. I think James Daniels is a good guard for them to pick up in that system. I think that's going to be a solid add. $8 million a year is if he starts, he starts. If he doesn't, it's good rotational. But then Westbrook Inkene, I think, adds a good round of things to what that offense can do. So I like the guard, I like the receiver ad, and I think he's complementary to what they had there already, and gives them a slightly different look for what they can put out there at the receiving core.
I agree. He stayed on the field for Tennessee because he's an exceptional blocking wide receiver. So ideally, run happy offense would love to have him. Which, like, you could almost see this team transitioning to being a little bit more run heavy, with having two good young running backs that they want to lean on. So Westbrook's fantastic. I like everything they did to shore up their secondary. So I know on NFL.com it has one of them listed as a cornerback, Melifonwu, and then Ashton Davis as a safety. They're both going to be playing, probably splitting time at strong safety and nickelback. I think that's fantastic. That is good for this secondary that definitely needed it. They're probably going to have to look elsewhere to improve it even more, but these are good steps.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And Davis on kind of a cheap prove-it deal as well. Liked him coming out, and here's an opportunity for him, new defense, see if he can step up. And then Melifonwu, I remember when he came out, kind of that second rounder, next big corner that's going to be the shutdown, and was not. But again, that's the nice thing about having some of those that draft capital. You can survive new plays. So we'll go to the Patriots next, and you are the Pats fan. I'll just start with this. I mean, a lot of roses on the defense, but my favorite signing had to be Mac Hollins. He is by far my favorite football player. Not like as I'm the biggest fan of him. Like, he is my favorite person who plays football because of the approach he takes to the game, and I love that he is playing football for Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic signing. Really good for the locker room. I don't have huge expectations of him being super productive. He's kind of just tossed in with all the other wide receivers, and I could be wrong, but we'll see how it shakes out in the preseason or through training camp. Biggest one for me is Morgan Moses. That is a solid acquisition. I think everybody needs to just, even if they have a good offensive line, they should double down and get as many quality linemen as they can. So adding a proven veteran like Morgan Moses, I think is exceptional. Protect Drake, let him figure out the offense.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the big thing is good versus bad is, can you protect them? And that's why certain teams have gone nuts about really investing in the line this offseason, because for some reason we have to keep relearning that lesson every single offseason.
It's a weird spot right now. Like, there's some good offensive line play, but it comes from a lot of like younger guys with they're still on rookie contracts, so like they're not perfect yet. So it's basically Trent, and then everybody else is, I wouldn't even say a tier below him. There are multiple tiers below him. So Morgan Moses typically would probably be just an average offensive lineman, but right now he's just a good signing because the landscape's so average.
That's true. All right. And then the defense is getting all the, like I said, all the roses with Harold Landry, Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis. I'm interested what you think of the Milton Williams signing, because he was in a 4-3 in Philly, and I think Vrabel likes to run a 3-4. Maybe it's some kind of hybrid. Do you feel like there's going to be any kind of issue of him transitioning, or were you a fan of this one, or what were you thinking here?
I'm I like it right now. I think he is the type of player that can just he can be a like almost a pass rushing defensive tackle. Like I really think Barrymore is going to be like the nose in that 3-4. Like he's going to be the middle guy. So I really like the idea of Milton being on the other side of him, like trying to either close gaps or just rush the passer.
That's true. And again, so much of the 3-4 these days is not necessarily a 3-4 end. It's more a nose tackle and a D tackle and then an end on the other side. So may not be as much of an issue as it's made out to be. This is one of my favorite signings of the offseason so far. It's Justin Fields to the Jets. Talk about a team that is desperate for someone to work and a player who's just desperate for it to work for him. I feel like ever since the semifinal game where he cooked Clemson and frankly, got then destroyed by Alabama because he was injured and nobody could protect him for shit. Fields has been running for his life. I feel like going to a Jets team that has one of his favorite guys in Garrett Wilson can kind of run the ball and focus on doing that and playing defense and kind of getting back to an offense or a system that works well for him and letting him just play the game again, I think would be good. Plus, there's no better palate cleanser in this world than, okay, we just went through the mess that was Aaron Rodgers and, just the disaster of that process. Anybody who's the next guy is going to have positive feelings about him.
Yes.
You agree?
I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Field signing. Like, I just think that this team is young and athletic and designed for this, and it's going to be fun and exciting. And they probably won't get very far in the postseason if they make it at all. But these teams are fun while they last.
Agreed. And look, even if they don't make it very far in the postseason, I can speak for the Jets fans, and since they are just down the hill from me, New York fans just want something to cheer for right now because of how embarrassing 2 years was ago with Rodgers going down in the first play, and then how embarrassing things were last year because Rodgers was just a shithead. They're just looking for someone that they can enjoy football with, even if he's not the long-term answer. But I like that it's going to give him a shot.
Yeah.
The Sherwood extension's a good one too. Ravens, again, quiet as usual to start. Pick up DeAndre Hopkins on a 1-year, $6 million deal. Again, nice little flyer. Otherwise, it's re-signing their own guys, but the big one being Ronnie Stanley. So not letting him get out of the house is a very good thing for them, I would say. Otherwise, just letting the first wave of free agency do its thing, which I feel like a lot of the best teams do when they draft well. And the Ravens have done a great job adding to the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ronnie Stanley pickup, I think we all know that was the re-signing was probably one of the best moves that's happened in free agency. Just keep the best guy that was on the board.
Yeah, just keep him in the building. Bengals bringing back Samaje Perine, 2-year deal for just under $4 million. Higgins getting the non-exclusive tag. Gesicki for 3 more years. I guess I always thought they drafted all to replace him. I know all got hurt in the offseason here and likely will miss all of next year. But the 3-year deal probably just comes out to like a 2-year deal with guarantees, basically. 25 and a half with 12 million in year one. So for all intents and purposes, it's a 1-year deal, and they'll probably cut it in the offseason next year. Cody Ford, good to re-sign him. And then a lot of defensive stuff. I think, it's going to be interesting. Cincinnati's gotten a lot of flack, I feel like, in the last 6 months, because you see who the Eagles have passed out big contracts to, and you see who the Niners have passed out big contracts to, and everyone's kind of thinking, all right, Bengals, why aren't you doing this? So I feel like they're getting pressure to spend some money and figure out how to make it all work, but I don't know if they have the same kind of leadership in the cap department that some of those other teams do.
Yeah, there's a bunch of issues in Cincinnati that are financial constraints to why they're probably not paying their guys. I mean, all of these signings are good. They keep a lot of guys that were there. Oren Burks is a nice one because it seems like a revolving door of linebackers there, and he's at least good enough to where he's, hopefully can provide some security there.
He's a good rotational guy.
Yeah.
He was special teams for the 49ers as we've had our exodus happen. So again, I'm sad to see him go. I liked having him as a special teamer that we could bring on as kind of a 4th or 5th linebacker. But, I think he's going to be a good player for them too. So
he's just a guy. He steps in whenever they decide to use a 3rd linebacker. He steps in as, he knows what to do. So they don't have to draft anybody and just throw them out there. They can let them learn. And it's a reasonable contract.
Yep. Looking at the Browns, trading for Kenny Pickett, keeping Myles Garrett in-house, and then extending Joe Tryon. You know what? As much shit as they're getting for the Myles Garrett situation, I'm glad Myles Garrett is staying in Cleveland. I'm from Ohio, as I think many folks on the pod know, and have been kind of a Cleveland Cavs fan for a while. And it's nice to kind of see good things happening for the city, at least in basketball, even though the Browns can't seem to get it together yet. And Myles really embraced this team as it was coming together early on. So I'm kind of excited by the idea that he gets to stick around. He gets to be kind of the football face of the city, because it certainly isn't Deshaun Watson, and kind of finish out his career on one place. So I'm a fan of it just because I'm an old school like that. But it sure doesn't hurt when you're making $40 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a fantastic number to say, please stay with us even if we're going to suck.
I mean, it shows that they understand he's not staying for the championship opportunity. Listen, we can't give you a championship, but what we can give you is quarterback.
How much, what is a Super Bowl ring worth to you? $100 million? Deal.
Well, I mean,
and at the end of the day, he can always leave in 3 years if he truly wants to that bad.
Well, that's the other thing. If he gets to a point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to try and go chase one here, let me go. Cleveland's the kind of place I'd be like, okay, yeah, here you go. We'll figure this out. Renegotiate this, and then we'll cut you so you have a chance to go chase it. Again, I think it's just a matter of this gives him an opportunity to, okay, you are clearly the face of the franchise with this contract. Let us figure out how the hell to get out of the Deshaun Watson situation, and then, we'll go from there. But, this is the first place to start.
The thing that I find interesting, and I want, I'd love to know, the no trade clauses now. Are those that the team can't trade them, or that the player can't request a trade?
It's got to be the team can't.
Yeah.
It most likely is. That's how it's always been. But I think we're at a point where the teams need to start putting in, like, you can't publicly request a trade. Like, no matter how terrible we get, like, here's your.
I have a hard time seeing very many players signing a contract with a clause like that.
Oh, I do too. I just think I think the teams should probably start trying to do that.
It's fair. So real quick, I'm sorry. Catch me up. Who have we covered so far?
So we've made it through the AFC East, and we're in the AFC North. We've talked everyone AFC North except for the Steelers, and we're doing them next.
Okay. Well, just the last thing I'll say on Myles Garrett, I will be curious. I know it's kind of hard to find because it's a very, very specific list. It's not like best quarterbacks to never win a ring, best edge rushers to never win a ring. I mean, if Garrett does stay with the Browns for the rest of his career, I wonder where he ends up falling on that list. I mean, he's got to be up there pretty high.
I mean, you're right. The thing is going to be like kind of to RJ's point, like, hey, we gave you money so that you're not going to chase the Super Bowl. But now the thing has got to be, all right, you're not chasing the Super Bowl, which means we're going to set you up to go for 20 sacks every single year.
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
But like, let's figure this out, because if we're not going to win the Super Bowl, fine, but you're going after that sack record every year. And I'll tell you what, if he's going after the sack record every year, they might just win a couple games on accident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always going to be that random game, and I don't know if Nick Chubb stays or not, but where you have the defense just basically shuts him out because Garrett throws out 5 sacks, 6 sacks. And then whoever's running back, Jerome Ford or Nick Chubb, ends up running for a 70-yard touchdown to close the game out, and they squeak one out. Now, as a Browns fan, I don't think I'd be rooting for anything like that because, let's be honest, they need all the help they can get. And picking at number 1 next year for Arch Manning is not the worst thing in the world to have.
Arch will not go to Cleveland.
Oh, I 100% agree, but you can draft him anyway. Yeah, it'll just be an Eli and Phillip Rivers situation. They'll end up having to let Arch go somewhere else and pick the next best guy or take the best available player, like when they got Garrett all those years ago. But, I'm happy for him. He got what he wanted in the end. If he wasn't going to chase a ring, then being paid $40 million a year is not a bad second place.
No, not at all. All right. So then Steelers, of course, trading for DK Metcalf. Parham and Harrison are good depth guys. Otherwise, quiet start as well. Houston has not been quiet. Let's see. Bringing back Ogunbowale, signing Braxton Berrios, trading for Christian Kirk, signing Justin Watson, signing Laken Tomlinson, Derek Barnett, Darrell Taylor, Mario Edwards, Sheldon Rankins, Nick Nyman, Tremont Smith, and trading for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Holy shit. And of course, the trade of Laramie Tunsil. We'll get to that a little bit more in a second here. Look, I know Diggs is walking. I know Dell is hurt. But this is a lot of investment in your wide receiver room and your D-line.
I mean, I did not realize how active Houston was because all of these are kind of under the radar moves. But I don't know if there's one that I dislike. I mean, all of these players, I think, will fill a role. I mean, Derek Barnett's the only one I could see just not even making the team by the end of it if they draft well. Darrell Taylor had a great start to his career and just kind of fizzled. Maybe he finds something in Texas. Mario Edwards is getting up there, but still really good. The one thing that really, I've lied. There is one thing that really bothers me. I cannot figure out why Laramie Tunsil was moved. I mean, was he bad last year quietly? Because I I mean, he's been a stalwart for like the last 6 years at left tackle.
No, I think they just felt like it was time to turn him into multiple assets.
I mean, you got to knock your draft out of the ballpark. If that's what you're gonna do, you have to put an offensive line in front of Stroud, because that line took a massive step back last year, and you traded your best one away. So that's the big thing for me.
And it may be like, hey, we don't want anyone who was on the line last year returning. Like, I feel like part of the CJ Gardner-Johnson is, hey, everyone's getting out of here. Like, Kenyon Green, yes, we invested in you, but you're out of here. We just traded Laremy Tunsil. Like, we're starting fresh, and it's clearing house to start.
I mean, other than Lakin, like the other offensive linemen, the latest or the oldest one is what, Titus Howard, who was drafted in 2019, so he's 28. Like, they have a pretty young, talented offensive line.
They do, but I mean, I get what Mike is saying. Like, we don't want anyone back, but yeah. Tunsil's same age, right? He's got to be in his 20s still, right? Oh, he is 30. Damn.
Yeah, he's 30.
I mean,
but again, he's one of those guys. He's a dancing bear. He's going to play till he's 39 if he wants to.
Right.
That's true. He'll be just like the Niners guy, Trent Williams. Yeah. But again, they really do. They need to draft well. I think this is a very pivotal year. They got to draft well. There's still a lot of holes. That division is very vulnerable. They should have no problem taking it over. They just have to draft well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's, you got your quarterback. You've got a solid running back. You've attached the receiving room pretty aggressively here to give yourself some stalwarts. You hit the line hard on defense. So, again, it's one of those where I might just take every single pick I've got left, and I'm taking offensive linemen. Like, if I'm them, I might walk out of here with 6 offensive linemen from this draft and say, I don't give a shit. 3 of these may not work out, but that means I got 3 guys who are going to be solid for me going forward. Like, that's worth wasting 3 picks for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like their defense a lot, actually. I think they have a lot of very good players on that defense. I don't think they quite came together how they were expecting last year, but I expect with some of the ads they've made and a year in the system, some of the guys that were new last year, I think it's going to be a good defense next year. And yeah, if they drafted all linemen, I honestly would not hate the decision.
And you made a really good point. These are all guys that D'Amico is going to connect with immediately. Like, Derek Barnett is like, do people remember he was on the Eagles team at all last year? Then Taylor, Edwards, Rankins, like, these are guys who at one point were stalwarts of their team who have been all but forgotten about. Edwards was supposed to be a much bigger thing coming in, but never really materialized. Like, you want a bunch of nobody believed in us guys who are going to be rotational on your team, and D'Amico's going to get them fired up, coached up, and this is your chance to do it. And if this isn't it, then you're just not going to get it done.
Yeah.
All right. Colts. Ashton Doolin picked up Mooney Ward. Can't bind him. 4-year, $60 million contract. Good for him. Nothing really else of note with Colts. Should we just keep moving?
I want to say one thing about the Colts.
All right. Talk about Daniel Jones.
No, it's not Daniel Jones. I think letting their guard walk was a big mistake. Will was his name?
Freeze?
Yes, Will Freeze, which, don't get me wrong, I was really hoping the Chargers would go after him, but, God forbid we do anything I expect. I hate the idea of letting young, even like that second tier, not quite all pro, not quite Pro Bowl, but good player. If he's going to get 18 a year and you have almost nothing else you need to spend money on, why are you not forking that over to try to keep him in Indianapolis. He went to the Vikings, which I love for the Vikings, but I don't know. I just don't understand teams like this letting guys like that. Personally.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree.
Was he a Pro Bowler? He might have even been a Pro Bowler.
Yeah. I don't know. Not a whole lot about the Colts surprises me, but look, we've got, I think, a max of 4 guys who got big money from the 49ers. So I don't know what the max number of third-round picks we can get next year is, but we're going to get them.
Yeah, it's fair. I do feel bad for the Niners. This has been a rough offseason for you guys.
It's funny, though. I mean, the Niners is the one getting all the, oh, look how picked over they are. There's one team who hasn't signed anyone yet. It's the Eagles. And they haven't exactly not let guys out the building. So,
yeah. Well, to be fair, the Eagles made a lot of extensions before the free agency period.
Yeah. Let's see. Jags bringing in Big Dick Nick. $10 million for Diami Brown. I mean, look, I liked the talent coming out. He had a nice end of the season run there. But $10 million for him? Like, I'm not wrong. I'm not on my own here, am I?
It's a little much, but so was the Christian Kirk contract at the time, and Kirk put up a couple great years for Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's a little high, but it's a 1 year prove it deal, and if he does well enough, they'll give him multiple years at probably less than that, $7 million or something like that.
All right, and then moving down to Titans, Dan Moore, 4-year, $82 million with $30 million in year 1. Talk about front loading a contract. Yeah, they let Landry walk. They're solidifying their lines. I think Cody Barton's a nice add at that price, and not a whole lot more than that right now. I think they're just trying to rebuild through the draft if they can.
I enjoy a lot of what the Titans have done. It's a very quiet free agency. They haven't made a ton of huge moves, but it's all pieces that they can use and need. And other than Dan Moore, nothing is like breaking the bank. And even Dan Moore's because they front loaded it. Now, if he doesn't work out for whatever reason, they could basically move on from him very easily.
That's true.
I think this is a fantastic. I think the Moore signing was fantastic. Like, if you look at the offensive line, it's going to be likely one of the better ones in the league.
Yeah. Well, Latham gets to start right tackle now, which I think makes it a lot easier for him.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I mean, Moore, he's one of the better left tackles in the league, and he's definitely in the top half. And why not pay him all the big money now before you have any big contracts that need to be paid out? You don't have unless you consider Will Levis their future, they don't really have a quarterback right now, so they don't have to pay one. They don't have any big name receivers. Pollard and Spears are cheap. Ish. Pollard might be a little expensive. I can't remember.
That's fair. All right. AFC West. Denver basically signing our defense. DJ Jones, who isn't coming from San Francisco, but was a 49er back in the day. Dre Greenlaw and Talona Hufanga. They have a theme. They like what we were doing there, and they're gonna try and do a lot of that too. Did they sign someone that was one of our guys as a defensive coordinator? Because it feels like they did.
I have no idea, actually. Greenlaw. How much did they pay Greenlaw? I don't see it on this.
Not enough.
It was relatively inexpensive, wasn't it?
3 years, 35. So that's the Niners. I think did one year 15, but they wanted a prove it deal since he's coming off a pretty catastrophic injury. I think it was his Achilles. So they wanted to see it for 1 year but he wanted multiple years for security. So Denver was able to swoop in with 2 more years and a little bit less on the annual value and snag him. So yeah, I agree with RJ. It's not enough, especially if he's back. If he's not back, then is what it is. But that's the kind of guy you take a chance on.
Yeah, him and Hufanga, because even Hufanga got, I think, probably a little bit under market for his contract, but he's still very young. Both guys coming off injuries, have been injured. Greenlaw scares me a little bit because Achilles injuries are always terrifying. It feels very rare to have a guy get back to his pre-injury form. Hufanga is just, he tore his ACL and then he had some wrist and knee stuff. So I think he'll probably be back to his all-pro self if he can just stay healthy this year. Greenlaw, even if he's not back to his self before the injury, I think he'll still be a good linebacker. So I like both those moves. I think I'm pretty upset because I think the Broncos have had a really good free agency, and I don't like that as a Chargers fan, but we do.
Yeah. You figure it out. All right. Does that work? No, that goes over. I can do that instead. Sorry, I'm trying to finish my around the league here as I'm going about doing this. The multitasking is real.
When did Surtain sign an extension? Was it before free agency or was it last year?
It was last year.
Okay.
All right. So we've got the Chiefs next. They continue their habit of just signing whoever the free agent running back is from San Francisco. This time it's Elijah Mitchell because nobody can stop breaking the law in Kansas City. Marquise Brown is back. Nick Bolton's re-signed. Jalen Moore is a nice add too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they also got Christian Fulton, which kind of sucks. But I don't know. He ran very hot and cold last year.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's see. Vegas, of course, trading for Geno Smith's a big thing. Locking down Max Crosby. I like the Malcolm Kuhn signing and the lockdown of Butler. I really like what the Raiders are doing this offseason so far. Geno's not a sexy quarterback to add, but he solidifies things. And again, that's another one of those positions that hasn't been solved since Carl left. So you got somebody, now make a plan around him so you can actually have a solid transition, pay him what he is going to get, and, don't expect him to be your answer for 10 years. He's your answer for 2, maybe 3. So plan accordingly. But it gives him a chance to do something from a position of strength, which the Raiders haven't done in a very long time.
Does it feel at all like this is a move to try to make the Raiders better and also add a mentor for their soon-to-be rookie quarterback? Geno's just a consummate professional. He's always been a real stand-up guy. It feels like he's the kind of guy you want teaching a young quarterback. So is this a move where they're saying, hey, we want to try to be a little better next year. We want to give some hope to veterans like Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. But we also want a guy that can teach, I don't know, Sanders or Jackson Dart or maybe Ewers, probably not, the ins and outs of being in the NFL and how to play professional quarterback. Does that feel at all like what this move could be?
I think the answer is yes. And I think we're saying the same thing, just a little bit differently. I think that this is not a long-term deal. This is here's 3 years, here's $105 million, and $35 million is more than fair for a quarterback in this market. That said, he is not the long-term guy, but you don't have to. If you only like 2 quarterbacks and both of them go in the top 5, you don't have to be like, do we have to grit our teeth and take somebody at 6? Like, you take the guy you want to take when you want to take him. And I know I'm over my skis on AOC. Got it. Maybe O'Connell sits behind him and sees if they can salvage something there. Probably not, but they don't have to go do something right now. It's if they like somebody, if they think that they're the right long-term fit, you go get them, but you don't have to do something immediately, or else because if you don't do something, then you can't do what you did last season. That was just the thing.
Yeah. Everybody saw what happened to Minnesota. And if Minnesota didn't just have Sam Darnold,
yeah, they'd be cooked.
Yeah, so now a lot of teams that are going to look at young quarterbacks in the draft, or look at quarterbacks in the draft, I should say, are going to have a veteran that can step in, just, on the off chance that they're Bryce Young and they don't play well, or, a JJ McCarthy scenario happens again.
But again, it allows you to, if you're there, pull a Mike Penix situation, which everyone killed last year. But guess who's out of the starting quarterback role by the end of the year because they're not satisfied. And you talk to anyone down the stretch who was playing against the Falcons, and they were like, Penix is shredding us right now. So they didn't have to rush him. They didn't have to put him in day one. They let him get healthy and come along and learn the system at the pace he needed to learn it, and then put him in. That is not a bad way to do this. So if you're sitting there at 6 and Jackson Dart's your guy and you don't have to put him in immediately, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Do you think it's more or less likely that the Geno trade means they're going for a quarterback next year instead of this year?
Go ahead, RJ.
I would say the best way to explain it is it puts them in a good situation where they have all of the positions that you would draft in the first round covered. So there's no they don't need to take anything this year. They'll just take the best player available or the player that fits their team the best. And you will probably see a quarterback taken in the next 2 years or so.
Okay. So just gives them flexibility.
Yep.
I can go behind that.
Yeah. I think that's I think the best way to build a franchise is you have someone in the position that you're okay starting there, and then you develop someone behind them that can take their job, and they take their job when they're ready to. I think that's how you have the best franchises built, is you bring the right, you're opportunistic so that you have the ability and powder dry to make a big move when it's time to, but you don't put yourself in a position that if something doesn't work out, you're screwed. That's when you get yourself in trouble. So Geno solidifies things and lets you move from a position of strength.
Cool. All right, on to my team.
I'll tell you what, I don't hate it. I think Najee makes a lot of sense there. Is J.K. still under contract?
No, he's an unrestricted free agent.
See, it's not the moves we've made that I hate. It's the moves that we haven't made that I hate. I'll just go on a little bit of a tear because I don't want to just be the guy who's like, I'm going to have blind faith in my GM and he knows what he's doing. I have been through enough free agencies and drafts with terrible front office that I don't trust anything anymore. I don't dislike Najee. I also don't understand, if you're going to sign Najee, why not just give the same contract to J.K. Dobbins? He was healthy basically all of last year. He had a little bit of a knee thing that cropped up when he got hyperextended. He came back. He was still good. You're probably not going to have to pay him any more than $10 million for a year. You let Poona Ford walk, which was one of the 3 or 4 highest graded nose tackles in the entire league last year. You let Christian Fulton walk, which, I haven't seen his contract yet, so maybe it was more than we wanted to pay. He's good depth, though. I mean, we haven't hardly done anything for any big free agents, and we have almost $100 million in cap. Milton Williams. Okay, if you want to not sign him for 26 or 27 million a year, fine. Josh Sweat, no, gonna let him walk too. Will Freeze, no, don't want that guy. I mean, how many players are we gonna watch go to other teams for what I think are fairly reasonable contracts? And instead we re-sign one of the worst pass blocking centers in the NFL, Bradley Bozeman, and then talk about moving him to left guard and playing Zion Johnson at center for the first time in his football career. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get what's going on right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I don't know the Chargers good enough to really disagree with you on a lot of this stuff, but I will say this tends to be what happens when Harbaugh makes a team his own, is he comes in and he does a very effective job using the ingredients that are in the kitchen. Let's do what we can. Let's find what we can off of the scrap heap. Let's not make any major earth-shattering moves and figure out what we've got here. Motivate some folks and figure out who the guys we want to keep in the room and who the guys we want. I get your point about JK. I would still go Harris. I am terrified of his injury history. And I know he came back fine last year, but look, you go from the guy, there's no injury history that I have to worry about. Everything's fine. Like, honestly, look at Christian McCaffrey going into last offseason versus this offseason. Last offseason, it's fine. Yeah, there might be a little tweak here or something like that, but he's coming back. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Look at what he did last year. He's a monster. And now this year, he may never play again. Who knows? People are saying shit like that. Like, all it takes for somebody with his history is one more bad fall. And I know that's the truth with anybody, but when you have the struggles that Dobbins does. So I think it's one of those where I honestly wouldn't be surprised for them to re-sign him. I think it's one of those go out. He's the kind of guy, not a Saquon Barkley. He's the guy that you go out and say, go test the market. And if somebody gives you 2 for $20 or 3 for $25 or something like that, go take that. Good for you. Good for your family. But if nobody does that, we'll bring you back for 1 for $7.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
All right. We'll speed this up just because we're spending the entire time talking free agency. Cowboys, some good depth signing and then re-signed Osa.
I feel like I haven't heard of a single move the Cowboys have made.
Well, I mean, they spent $18 million, over 3 years on Kevonta Turpin. Who would do something silly like that?
Yeah,
The Giants are leading to my favorite meme of the free agency season so far, of the guy with wearing glasses saying we should re-sign Saquon, and then he puts the glasses back on and says we should re-sign Slayton. I think that's just phenomenal, and they should get rolled as much as they can for that. A lot of signings on the defense, considering it's an offensive coach. I guess this is truly the we're GMing and coaching for our jobs here, so bringing in everyone we can, all hands on deck. And of course, Tommy DeVito coming back.
We couldn't go into next season without Tommy DeVito being in there. It'd just be weird.
Eagles re-signing Barkley, re-signing Bond, trading Pickett for DTR, and trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson for Kenyon Green. Look, this is just what the Eagles do. It's let me trade this guy who I'm kind of okay with for a player who I think could be good for me or has a talent to be really good for me, and I'm going to get a pick upgrade in the process. Like, this is when people look at the draft and say, how the hell do the Eagles have so many picks in the top 4 rounds? Like, this is how they do this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, does this just signal that Mekhi Beckman's for sure gone?
I don't know about that. I don't know if Kenyon Green is stepping right in. I think they may. Is Becton a free agent?
I believe he is, yes.
I think it's going to be the same kind of thing. If somebody gives him a bag, the Eagles say thank you for being here and enjoy your Super Bowl ring. If not, they'll bring him back.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird seeing the Eagles just let everybody walk, but I get that you can't pay everybody.
And again, Howie's always been really good at letting him go a year too early versus a year too late. Commanders, Debo trade, Zach Ertz for another year, the Tunsil trade, Kinlaw, Bobby Wagner's back. A lot of just the role players you would want to see on kind of a solid team of Super Friends. Now it's going to be a question of, have they clogged some of these key positions that they need younger guys to step up into that really hurts them in the year? Or are they kind of the Super Friends here for next year that everyone wants to play with Jaden Daniels?
RJ, got anything?
Everybody wants to play with Jaden Daniels. It's fun and exciting. Revitalizes careers.
Certainly don't blame them. I think the Eagles have made the Commanders have made some outstanding moves.
Yeah.
I love it. This is a team that I would not be betting against for even potentially Super Bowl contention next year.
So
one good draft, and I think they're there.
So moving to the north, I'll tell you what, the Bears do this to me every year. I love players they take. I love the moves they make, and then they hurt me. And as Michael Scott said it, I am ready to get hurt again. You want a team that's going after what is your worst weakness, and I'm not going to fix it once. I'm not going to fix it twice. I'm going to fix it 3 fucking times. Jordan Johnson, Joe Thuney are great guards to add if they still have, what they were. Now, that's a big question, considering they got them for basically late day 3 picks. But, great ways to address that. Bringing in Dahlman for $14 a year, I think is a really good add. And then I like Deo. I like Grady Jarrett being opportunistic there. I really like what Chicago did with their lines. They spent a ton of money last year on skill positions, and a ton of capital on skill positions last year. Now they're sorting out their lines. Again, if Ben Johnson is half as good as everyone thinks he is, this team's going to be a double-digit win next year. I'm a little scared.
I mean, it's awesome. Like you said, I'm ready to be hurt again because I really predicted this to be one of the top 5 offenses in the league last year, going into the year. But yeah, this is what you want. You want to get all of the offensive line that you can possibly get. I mean, it's 5th and 6th round picks. Yeah, you're paying them some money, but you're talking about picks that almost certainly will not be meaningful players. So, hell yeah. Good moves.
Yep. Let's see. Lions.
Grady Jarrett was another great move, by the way. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I'll go back to that when I get to the Falcons. Lions, Derek Barnes is the big move really there. DJ Reed's a nice add, I think, for those of us paying some attention to the IDP, but they've been mostly quiet. Packers, almost 20 a year for Aaron Banks. Thank you. He was okay, but he was not that on our team. So thank you for the 3rd round pick next year. And then the Vikings, again, same kind of thing. Bring back Aaron Jones which is basically a 1-year deal. Will Freeze and Ryan and Kelly on the offensive side, Jonathan Allen on the defensive side, and then keeping Byron Murphy. I think they did a lot of the right things. And he let Sam Darnold walk. Unfortunately, I think some of these signings are going to counter the third rounder you get back for him in terms of letting him walk. But that's a thank you for the season. Let's see what we've got with the youngster.
I like it. Jonathan Allen was a little rich for a guy that seemed to have underperformed a lot on the Commanders, but I mean, they're all good signings, all players I like.
Yep. Matthews' extension makes sense to me in Atlanta. I like the Diablo ad linebacker. I don't know how you let Grady Jarrett out of the building and then you jump at the opportunity to go get Leonard Floyd. Again, they're different positions. I got it. But we're talking one of the better defensive tackles and defensive linemen, for your team and maybe in your team history. And you let him out the door and nobody sees it coming. And then as soon as, a rehash from San Francisco hits the junk pile, you jump on it like it's a Christmas ham. I just don't get it. Panthers continuing to kind of build around the edges. Dalton's back. Tremble's back. Christian Corbett back. Defense. Big signing for Deshaun Watson. Big extension for J.C. Horn. Big contract.
A lot of money for J.C. Horn.
It's one of those where the best way I can say it, I don't know what they're doing. I hope they know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I like the player, but it certainly, don't get me wrong, I don't follow the Panthers super closely. So J.C. Horn is almost like a peripheral name, to my knowledge. It feels like he hasn't been very healthy in his career so far. And although good, I don't know if he's worth the top corner in the market money.
Yeah. Saints, again, I hope they know what they're doing. Deepest team in the league at tight end, and yet you're giving Juwan Johnson 3 years, $30 million. Chase Young, I don't know what he did last year to get a $17 million a year contract, but
yeah. I don't know.
Buccaneers bringing back Chris Godwin makes a lot of sense. Bringing back Levante David brings back a lot of sense. And then I think Reddick on a prove-it deal too. Plus he's kind of at that age where it makes some sense. And hey, he gets to move to Florida and do it with no sales tax. Or no income tax, sorry.
I think the Bucs have quietly had a very, very nice free agency.
Speaking of really nice free agencies, the Cardinals, I think, did a really good job too. Brissett, I think, is the right guy to have behind Kyler. Zay Jones is a nice sort of fourth or fifth wide receiver just to kind of have on the back end of the roster. Beachum and Brown, two solid linemen to add. Josh Sweat and Baron Browning, I think you pay up for Sweat, I got that. But then Browning, I think, is a deal at 2 years, 15. And then Akeem Davis-Gaither, 2 years, 11. And, I really like what they did on their line and their front seven and kind of some around the edges stuff there. I think it's a really good start so far for the Cardinals. On the other side of it, the Rams, I don't know. I don't know why you have Jimmy there. Nobody has any confidence in him. If you lose Matt Stafford, you're just basically, it's time to fold the tents. Like, I don't get it. And the fact that Devontae Adams is signing there after basically on wide receiver, like losing his shit, trying to catch balls from Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, wait a second. Like, you force your way out of Vegas because you don't want to deal with this clown. And now you're going to a team where he's the backup quarterback. So, again, I don't always understand how these things work. And then look, I get adding Devontae Adams at 23 a year, but dude, if you're really going to cut Cooper Kupp, the fuck are you doing adding Devontae Adams?
I mean, Devontae Adams has a significantly smaller injury history than Cooper Kupp. To be fair,
he's also 4 years older.
2, maybe.
We'll have to check that. So again,
Adams is 32.
They're a year apart.
Cooper Kupp is 31.
31.
Okay. So
I mean, the advantage is the injury history. Essentially, you're probably paying them basically the same money that they would have, that Kupp would have made, and he's less likely to be hurt.
Yep. Niners have let everybody walk and I think, have 11 picks in this draft and are planning to sort of fill the cupboard that way, take their medicine on the cap, and kind of reload for another run at this. So that's what happens when you do something like this. It doesn't look great during free agency, but you feel a lot better about it after the draft is come and gone. And last but not least, the Seahawks masterfully trading away Geno Smith, only to sign Sam Darnold. And then just kind of hanging on to the guys I need to. Traded for Ernest Jones mid-year last year, awarded him, re-signed Jaron Reed. So, yeah, that's free agency so far. Anything major change in our free agency? Let's see.
Nothing that I saw. I will say the Sam Darnold trade is very polarizing. I know a lot of Seahawks fans. I live up here in Washington, and they are very polarized by it. I don't mind it. You got like 6 or 7 years younger, basically the same price and same talent. Maybe even better. It's hard to tell.
Yep. All right. Our free agency, not a whole lot's happened. Let's take a look at the trades that have happened since last week. So trades, just a couple of them. Let's see, we would have been the 4th last week. Yeah, that was afterwards. So 21 trades. Damn, look at us. Who'd have thought it?
The Watson trade happened post-pod, didn't it?
Yeah, that was post-pod. Yeah, look, we say post-pod things happen, and it's been a while. But kicking around ideas, and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to send an offer like this to a pick that was a little bit later. And Bill said it sounded good to him. So there we are. 103 for Christian Watson, the Eagles first and my first in 26. We'll get to the flip of Watson later on, but he was trying to get 3 future firsts for that pick, and he was able to add some later round picks to Watson and get another future first for that. So he got what he wanted, and I got what I wanted. So it's a good trade as far as I'm concerned. Giants giving up Christian Kirk and Baron Browning. We just talked about Browning's new landing spot. Perfect kind of goose guy. Goose gives up Calvin Austin, Charles Omenihu, and Jordan Hicks, along with Trayvon Diggs. It's weird to see Giants and Chiefs making a deal. Usually Chiefs is dealing in the non-flashy names, and those seem to be the names that Giants finds himself attracted to. So, you know what? I thank the Giants for getting some of these players off the Chiefs team, so we don't have to see them in trade offers.
Do you think the Giants, with these free agent moves, regrets making that trade? I think he has to, personally.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, Christian Kirk ended up in a far better situation than he was before, and now Browning is going to be fighting for a starting spot in the Cardinals.
I think maybe. Cleveland Farrell and 318 from the Chiefs for Jeremy Ruckert and Michael Jackson.
More goose guys.
Yeah, I like Ruckert when he came out, but hasn't done as much. But Michael Jackson is definitely a goose guy. Hey, Giants didn't feel too bad for too long. He's been trying to move Murray for, I feel like, weeks. Pairs Austin with Murray gets to 208. So this is a season where he loves his picks.
It's a steal of a 208.
Yeah.
I guess that happened free agents, pre-free agency, so you didn't know about the DK move yet.
Yeah. So Goose moving off for the Buccaneers, future first for Christian Watson, 310, 325, 326, 428, and his own future third back. So Chiefs gets a lot of small picks to make deals with kind of around the edges that he likes to do. Plus, Christian Watson is kind of a big play guy. And, he's got to pay somebody on his roster of cheap all-stars. So wouldn't be surprised if he extends Watson just to kind of get that locked in as a contract to kind of counterbalance the players he usually goes for. Cowboys giving up a future second for Zach Bond. Raiders giving up a Treylon Burks for Hayden Hurst in 328.
Don't have to see Hayden Hurst trade offers anymore either.
Is Treylon Burks worth that at this point?
Well, he gets moved again. So I was going to come back to him in a second, but he gets moved from the Chiefs to the Dolphins for Bills' third next year.
So he essentially got Hayden Hurst for free and turned a late third this year into a late third.
Early third next year.
Did you say the Chiefs third?
No, the Broncos third.
Oh, the Broncos third. Oh, I got you. I thought you said the Chiefs third.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's actually really good. It's a good flip.
And Bill moving off a bunch of later picks for a second. Cowboys second from Panthers. I think he's expecting him to be in that second round range. And then Rory and I making some magic here. 13 and 21 for Jalen Waddle, Tavian Sanders, and DJ Johnson.
Took forever to work that trade out.
Yeah, and again, Panthers had a good point. He and I were talking Waddle earlier in the offseason, and it was for a much later pick. So I think it might have been the 21 that was going for that. So I'm fine with it. I have a weak spot for Waddle. I think most.
Well, you also picked up a couple Carolina guys that are both promising and young still. I really like Sanders. I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I think Sanders. I like the Tremble signing worries me not at all long term there. I think that's Sanders' job, and Tremble is not really a threat. If he was going to be, he would have been already. So it's an opportunity that if that offense takes a step forward, he's going to break out in a big way. So I'm fine doing that. And like you said, DJ Johnson seems to be in high regard in that defense. And again, nothing that happened so far this season is changing my opinion on that.
Yeah. I don't hate the move for either of our teams. I think that was a good option for both of us.
Saints was trying to move his future first for a mid first this year, adds 214 and 219 to do it. I think it's a great move for Titans. He's trying to rebuild and is turning first this year into 2 seconds and a first next year. I think that's a nice way to do that. Tutu Atwell for 26 and 48, 428, which I think Chiefs got from the Broncos trade. Yep. So again, he takes a future first, grabs Christian Watson with it, grabs Tutu Atwell with it, and just keeps recycling the guys he wants to go get. 310 as part of that trade, of course, goes to get Jalen Thompson. And then the last 9 here, we got a couple of, I'd say, the tanking teams making some acquisitions that I'm a little surprised by. Bengals moving off of Jaquan Brisker for 306 and 517. Not saying bad things about Brisker, but again, his projection might help. Projected for 86 tackles, 45 assists, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 2 sacks.
Holy shit. He's projected to have a 300-point season. Holy crap. I mean, he's a 25-year-old $10 million safety for a team that's probably not going to win more than 4 or 5 games next year. So it is a little odd, but you get into the heat of the season or, right at the beginning, you might be able to flip that for, if he starts off hot, a late second, maybe to a contender who needs DB help.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, okay, that's safety, but then you go up a little bit. Taloa Hufanga moves for 320. Now, Falcons and Panthers, I think, are real life friends, so that might have gotten worked out over a couple of years, and you can't always do that. But I'd much rather have Hufanga than Brisker, and that's just my bias showing a little bit.
The Falcons, one of the Panthers friends?
I think so. Panthers and Chargers. Panthers moving off of Brian Thomas Jr. to get Xavier Worthy and the Chargers first next year. I love this for the Chargers.
I do too.
BTJ was a stud last year, and I'll give Panthers full credit. He called out that he was going to be probably the number 2 guy in this class. I think he may have had a different order in front of him. I don't know if he said Neighbors in front of Thomas or what, but Thomas exceeded all expectations, and man, it looks like they're going to feature the shit out of him in Jacksonville next year. So taking Worthy, who has had a few, call them issues with the law, even though he had this last one dropped, moving out and selling him, and then his first on top of it, which, again, Panthers was more than willing to flip. But, again, I think that's just a great move for Chargers.
I agree. Chargers, I think the Chargers have a very underrated team as of now. They're going to struggle a little bit when it comes to like running back and tight end points, I think. But I like their defensive tackles. I like their DNs. I like at least one of those linebackers. And now he's added Brian Thomas Jr. to Rashee Rice. And if Rashee Rice somehow manages to stay out of jail next season or avoid a suspension, he's probably going to have 550 points between those two guys.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, too, is he doesn't have his picks left, and he's not exactly going for it in that division right now. And I think he's going to be, I'd say, strategic in free agency, knowing that there's not a lot on there that he can add that really is going to move the needle for him. But he's doing this in a very methodical way, where he's got his long-term quarterback in Bryce Young. He's got what he hopes is going to be his long-term running back in Jonathan Brooks if he comes back. He has now Bryce and Thomas and a bunch of good depth behind him if Mitchell breaks out, and a whole bunch of if good things happen. And he's adding tent poles in a lot of the key locations. Now, talent has to turn into production at some point or else it doesn't work. But I think he's building himself an interesting looking team right now.
Yeah, I agree. And not to mention his division is fairly weak, I would say. Other than the Chiefs, who are obviously still trying to contend, Bill is very obviously going for the bottom of the barrel as fast and hard as possible. And I think the Raiders are kind of all over the board. They got pieces I like. They got pieces I don't like. I'm not quite sure which direction they're going, but I mean, he could end up having 6 wins out of that. Nah, I don't know why I said 6 wins out of the division. 6 wins, 7 wins next year, and that turns that pick from a top 3 to middle of the pack. So you give up Worthy in like the 112 for Brian Thomas. That's a phenomenal trade.
Does not suck in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
All right, moving on up. You pick up the just acquired Chargers pick and the 213 for the 113 and 228. Yeah, you move up 15 picks in the draft and move from 113 to the Chargers pick next year, which should be that or better. So for what you're doing with your team, it's a win-win. Panthers gets the capital he wants this year, and you move some of the stuff the next year.
Yep. We had this deal worked out before he had the Chargers deal accepted.
Nice,
So this
yeah.
was basically a turnaround. I was just saying about the Chargers. I think they could pick up a couple wins and end up around 12. It also would not shock me at all if some things don't break his way and he ends up with the top 7 pick. And then I turned 113 in a late second into 213 and a top 10. So yeah. And I am trying my hardest to move everything I can into next year, just because I don't think I can beat Bill at tanking, but I at least want to compete for number 2.
Well, yeah, and I think that you've got the right read on Chargers. I don't think he's going to. He's not going to win a race to the bottom. He's not making. Things would have to be kind of ridiculous for him to make the playoffs. But with Bill in his division, that's 2 wins. With Raiders kind of watering in the wilderness, that's a potential 3rd win. And he's going to have a 4th place schedule next year because he won the race to the bottom, second in the race to the bottom this year. So he very likely gets to 4 or 5 wins. And I think that's going to be, kind of somewhere in that 7 to 13 range, I think is a good spot to put him. So we'll see exactly how that plays out.
Yeah.
Trevin Moehrig for Jordan Fuller in a 407. Cam Hart for 529 and 320 for Talanoa Hufanga. Like I said, rather have Hufanga than Brisker and a couple of the other safeties that went there. Good for him. So mention we wanted to see Dolphins starting to strategically buy things. I don't hate the fact that this is a 3rd round pick being used to buy things rather than early round capital. But man, if you're going to get into the game, get in the game. Bill's 3rd next year for Treylon. Look, if you're trading around 301, 302, or you have one of those pick names, like even if it's a later round pick, that's going to draw some extra attention. And I think those are the kind of things that Goose loves to pick up. So, even though he just bought Treylon, happy to flip him.
Yeah.
Josh Palmer, straight off his Buffalo signing, and the 329 to the Bengals for Quinnen Williams. I don't hate it, but I'm just surprised. Saints was kind of adamant that he wasn't going to pay up for a D tackle, and Palmer's got to get paid this season. He's in his 5th-year option. Oh no, he's in his 5th-year option.
He's in his 5th year. So if he doesn't extend him by tomorrow, then it's just a 1-year rental. I have to imagine the Bengals extend him after he goes to Buffalo, though.
Could be. All right. And then I move 309 through 17, 401 and 403 to get Luke McCaffrey. I was a big fan of his last year. Didn't exactly have the best season, so I package a bunch of picks that I'm going to have trouble making to grab a guy that, especially with Diami Brown gone, I think is going to have an opportunity to pick up a couple extra plays here. So we'll see.
You just wanted a McCaffrey on your team. Don't lie.
Look, I got Luke and I got Christian. So I got the McCaffrey connection. We're all good.
Yep.
I got a McCarthy and 2 McCaffreys. I'm as Irish as it gets.
It's true. I don't mind it. I mean, those are all later picks. I don't think you're going to get a player with McCaffrey's because McCaffrey was taken early 2nd, or was he a 1st round?
He was like 211 or something.
Yeah. So he's a round 3 pick in the actual draft, and I mean he's probably not going to see a ton of targets this year, but it's not like Debo's going to be around long term. And McCaffrey's he's an athlete, so I like the acquisition.
What?
Now I just noticed Amari Cooper did he get cut or was he just a free agent? So
I don't know.
Because it says voided for a bunch of years later down the line, but it looks like he's an unrestricted free agent. And now the Bills brought in Palmer to be the wide receiver too. So Bengals might have just bought Palmer at a pretty big discount, honestly.
Good for them.
A decent D tackle for what could be a guy that puts up 200 points next year, maybe.
Not bad at all.
Might be another Juwan Jennings situation.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That was fun.
That was.
I enjoy talking
all
about
right.
the trades that we have in this league.
All right. Well, again, free agency is underway in our league and in real life. We're kind of getting that second wave of free agency in real life where some of the depth players who you don't expect to be huge end up being big contributors, start to go around, and some deals get to be found. So going to be keeping an eye out for that. And as free agents start to get traded and cap starts to become a little bit more scarce, we'll see if that leads to a few more trades here as teams try and position a little bit differently. But till then, I think I've counted 26 auctions right now. That means 6 folks are sitting on their bids. Get on it, guys. This is, again, time to kind of tag back in and, do what you need to do here. Hopefully the commissioners will shame the 6 who have not bid yet. If not, I'm sure someone will probably try and get to it tomorrow. But yeah, keep making the teams your own. This is the easiest time of year to kind of position yourself. So don't wake up in the week of the draft and say, man, I wish I had done this stuff differently. Like, this is the time. So get involved and make it happen.